of the National Anthem, to be performed by the St. Luke's Medical Center College of Medicine Chorale.
As the sun crosses the sky, still my light with wisdom and light bless my body with strength and vigor, my soul with kindness and peace, my heart with compassion and love. To this day grant these hands your guidance and power to restore the broken, to relieve what aches, to lessen suffering and pain. Give you this vessel in your hands to spare your people from harm. And through these hands, by these hands, in your name, I shall be. Bayang magiliw, pero sa silanganan, alab ng puso, sa ligid mo'y buhay. Lupang hinirang, tuyang ka ng magiting, sa manlulupig, di ka masisig. Sa dagat at bundok, sa simula, sa langit mo buhaw, malilag ang tula at awit sa paglayong minamahal. Ang kisap ng watawat mo'y tagumpay na nagdilimlim, ang bituin at araw na kailan pa may magdidilim. Lupa ng araw ng buwan, pati pagsinta mo'y langit sa piling mo. Aming ligaya ng pagkay mga apil, ang mamatay ng dahil sa'yo.
To give her welcoming remarks, may we call on the Dean and Chief Academic Officer, Dean Susan Pelea Nagtalon.
Chairman Frederick D. and the members of the Board of Trustees, President and CEO, Dr. Arturo de la Peña, our distinguished speaker, St. Luke's Medical Center executives, St. Luke's Medical Center College of Medicine faculty, students and alumni, the Kuan family, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning. I am delighted to welcome you to the third Chairman Robert F. Kuan Memorial Lecture, a tribute of the College of Medicine to its visionary leader. Servant leadership, for which Chairman Kuan stood for, had been the recurring theme of this undertaking. The coronavirus pandemic has proved to be a litmus test of leadership as the countries around the world fought for survival under unprecedented circumstances. In such dire straits, managing had in many ways been dramatic, It shared the qualities of an onstage drama. What did we observe during those times of uncertainty? Initially thought to be another strain of the influenza virus affecting individuals in one Asian country, the exponential increase in the number of cases and the apparent severe morbidity and deaths gave the impression that what we had was a crisis, and a very serious one. These required confronting the tough truth of the situation. Although some optimism were expressed initially, when things did not change, the raw truth had to be shared to prepare for the worst while hoping for the best. In crisis, we need guidance and support through difficult times. Clear, consistent, relevant, and empathetic communication shared in real time manages fears, earns trust, and engages all citizenry to do our share to control the situation. We are privileged to have with us a well-respected physician leader who was among those who bravely faced and decisively managed our need for the right information at precisely the moment we needed it most. On behalf of the St. Luke's Medical Center community, we thank you, Dr. Maria Rosario Vergeire, for sharing your time to address us in this occasion.
To let us into the life and times, the honoree from whom this memorial lecture was named after is Dr. Genevieve Padilla-Evangelista, the College Secretary and Assistant to the Dean.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to St. Luke's Medical Center, College of Medicine. Welcome to the third Dr. Robert F. Kuan Memorial Lecture. Today is another milestone for the college as we mark another year honoring the man who had been an inspiration not only to the college, but to the various organizations and institutions he had been involved with. In his 70 years of existence, Mr. Roberto Fung Kuan, a visionary businessman and an exemplary Christian, had an amazing life filled with success and love. Born in Manila on August 6, 1948, Mr. Kuan graduated from the University of the Philippines with a bachelor's degree in business administration in 1970. He obtained his master's degree in business management from the Asian Institute of Management in 1975 and took part in AIM's top management program for company presidents and chief executive officers. In 1985, when Western-style burger joints dominated the Philippine fast food segment, Mr. Kuan, after co-managing the premier noodle house Lingnam with his siblings, founded Chowking Food Corporation. This Chinese fast food restaurant then became a significant player in the industry and had a vast network of 150 stores in the country and abroad before it was sold to Jollibee Food Corporation in 2000. Mr. Kuan was also able to demonstrate his exceptional leadership in the medical field when he joined St. Luke's Medical Center as a trustee in 1989 and was elected chairman of the board in 1996. Under his leadership, St. Luke's Medical Center Global City in Taguig opened in January of 2010. The new hospital stood proud as Kuan's significant achievement, along with St. Luke's Medical Center Quezon City, which started as a church-run charity hospital, to be the leading and most recognized healthcare institution in the Philippines with its world-class quality medical services. On the side, St. Luke's continues to provide services to the poor through the construction of new church buildings, providing technical and financial support to church activities, and the allotment of 300 million peso yearly budget for the social service program of the medical center. This provided Mr. Kuan a sense of fulfillment that is beyond financial success. Mr. Kuan received several awards and citations for his pioneering business strategies and remarkable achievements through the years. Among these were the AAA Award or the Alumni Achievement Award, the highest honor bestowed on an outstanding alumnus of the Asian Institute of Management, Agora Award for his outstanding achievement in the field of entrepreneurship, Business Achiever of the Decade, Franchise Excellence Award as the most promising Filipino franchisor for Chowking, TOEFL or the Outstanding Filipino Award, Business Leadership Award, and a string of citations as an outstanding alumnus from his alma mater, the University of the Philippines. In September 2011, he stepped down as chairman of St. Luke's Medical Center and remained on the board as a trustee in the years that followed. He continued his humanitarian work as district governor of the Rotary Club of Makati. He had also served other vital roles in the private sector as a member of the board of China Bank, Sea Oil, Philippine Scientific Research Foundation of AIM, Towers Watson Insurance Brokers, Creative Dining Incorporated, Good View Seafood Restaurant, and Hot Cafe. He also devoted his time to education. He served as chairman of the board of Brent International School in Baguio, Manila, and Subic, and as a trustee of the Far Eastern University. In 2017, he became the chairman of the board of trustees of St. Luke's Medical Center, College of Medicine, William H. Quasha Memorial, a position he had held until his death on September 15, 2018. Mr. Kuan accomplished much in his lifetime as a servant of God, an exceptional leader, and a role model in the various fields he had devoted his life to. His business partners and colleagues knew him to be the passionate entrepreneur with a visionary mindset tempered with humility. For his loved ones, he led an extraordinarily remarkable life filled with much love and great food, and had been a gifted mentor, loyal friend, devoted husband, brother, father, and a grandfather. For us, he was a man of wisdom who was generous with his time, someone who was warm, simple, compassionate, and a true servant leader. So today, aside from dedicating the memorial lecture of Dr. Rosario Vergeire, our staff has prepared their own tribute through an audiovisual presentation on the life and times of our dear Mr. RFK, so that his lessons and memories may live long in the minds and hearts of the present and future members of the Lucan community. Let's watch this.
To introduce the memorial speaker, may we call on Dr. Bernard F. Laya, the head for special conferences.
Our distinguished speaker this morning is Dr. Maria Rosario Singh Vergeire. She's the current OIC Undersecretary for Public Health Services team and the official spokesperson of the Department of Health. She was previously the OIC Undersecretary for Health Regulation team and Assistant Secretary in charge of the Public Health Services, which had her oversee the programs on dengue, measles, and polio. Dr. Vergeire also acted as OIC Deputy Director General Field Regulatory Operations of the Food and Drug Administration, Office Director of the Health Facilities and Services Regulatory Bureau, and Chief of the Health Research Division of the Health Policy Development and Planning Bureau. Her publications include Health Promotions and Non-Communicable Diseases in the Philippines. Dr. Vergeire has committed decades to public service, having worked in Marikina City's health office before joining the Department of Health in 2007. Aside from public service, she's also committed to nurturing soon-to-be public health leaders, serving as faculty at the Development Academy of the Philippines and at the Ateneo School of Government. Dr. Rosette, as she is fondly called, is the third daughter of Harry Singh, a political strategist from Marikina, and Clara Singh, a lawyer. She holds a bachelor's degree in zoology from the University of Santo Tomas. She initially wanted to enter law school, but her mother persuaded her to get into medical school instead at the De La Salle Medical and Health Sciences. She later earned her master's degree in public health at the University of Philippines, Manila. After her studies, she directly went into the field of governance and teaching. Through the years, she was able to build an impeccable reputation as a public servant, earning the trust of her peers and superiors. Her responsibilities are tremendous, participating in development plans, reviewing policies and guidelines, and providing technical assistance to the different bureaux of the agency, to name a few. Through it all, family life remains very important to her. She is very proud of her 3 children, all boys, whom she openly declares as very good and prayerful children. Last year, 2020, while she was still nurturing the pain over the passing of her father, she was faced with the task of being the DOH spokesperson. She was initially hesitant to accept the job, given the delicate task and uncertainty surrounding the pandemic. But not long after, she has become very familiar to Filipinos, regularly reporting on the status of the COVID-19 pandemic. Her calm yet commanding voice of reason has provided us with a sound and evidence-based source of information during these very challenging times. This command helps allay the fears of a nation anxious and confused about this pandemic. Her knowledge, government experience, integrity, and palpable commitment to serve our nation have made her an effective communicator and servant leader that has won the trust of Filipinos, particularly during this time of uncertainty. Ladies and gentlemen, it is with great honor that we present to you our distinguished Dr. Robert F. Kuan Memorial Speaker in the person of Dr. Maria Rosario Singh Vergeire.
To all the corporate officers, Board of Trustees, faculty, alumni, students, healthcare professionals, and staff of the St. Luke's Medical Center, a pleasant morning to all of you. Thank you, St. Luke's Medical Center and the Kuan family for the privilege to be the memorial speaker of today's Dr. Robert F. Kuan Memorial Lecture. Today, I wish to share with you some nuggets I've learned along the way after more than 2 decades in public service. Admittedly, this is the first time I will be doing such a personal lecture so bear with me for the next 15 minutes. As much as the last 1.5 years has been challenging for all of us, it has been the most learning field for me as well, both personally and professionally. Personally, because I recently lost my mother and father, both of whom I am really close to and refer to for guidance. And professionally, because I had to learn and take on a new job, that is, to communicate to the public, something I was neither trained nor practiced on. When things get tough, and indeed it has been for all of us, it makes us reflect and ask ourselves, how did we get here in the first place? For me, I started off my journey in public service like most of you. Believe it or not, I was also once a youngster who didn't know what I wanted to be. I grew up exposed to public service through my parents. My mother was a practicing lawyer, and often she'd come home with bags of vegetables as professional fee from her clients who wouldn't have enough to pay. I would accompany her to hearings at times. Meanwhile, my father was the very first barangay captain of our community, and he had that post for many years. Eventually, he became the kingmaker of Marikina, advising politicians in our area. But I never really thought about what I really wanted to become. So when the time came to choose my college course, I chose political science and zoology for no clear reason. I eventually got accepted to zoology. Then after finishing, I barely had any idea what to do next. Then one day, my mother decided to take me somewhere. What I thought was just a quick trip turned out to be my first step into this world of medicine and public service. I sat down for my entrance exam, and in a few hours, I was enrolled into the De La Salle College of Medicine in Cavite, and I had my dormitory ready. I initially thought that I wanted to be an OB-GYN, but I guess life had other plans for me. I was in medical school when I had my sons during clerkship and internship. This was a critical period wherein I knew I had to balance my professional aspirations with my obligations as a mother of my 2 boys. Upon graduation, I started working at a health center in Marikina City. The experience opened my eyes to the difficulties for our kababayans to have access to equitable, affordable, and quality healthcare. Right then and there, despite the daily challenges and my relative inexperience, I knew I needed to help and change the status quo. After a couple of years, frustration started setting in, and fortunately for me, I was offered the chance to take up my master's in public health at the University of the Philippines. Because of this, I was able to take time off from work and avoided burnout. More importantly, I was given the time to study and put frameworks to what I had been encountering on the ground. After my 1 year of master's, I came back into the community. I wanted to do more, much more. Eventually, I was promoted as the Chief of Technical Office in the City Health Office of Marikina. However, due to some unfortunate political turn of events, I was assigned to the ambulance service of Marikina City. But in keeping with my commitment to make things work, I turned things around in this post and fixed the emergency services of the city. It was a difficult time, but I had to make the best out of my situation. There are times in our lives when it feels like we are destined elsewhere, but we forget that we are experiencing right now is all part of the journey towards where we are destined to be. Do your best wherever you are, whatever you are given. In that way, you can proudly tell yourself that you have really done your best. After my master's, my world opened up and I wanted to do more. So I did not pass up the opportunity to apply to the Department of Health, Health Policy Development and Planning Bureau. This specific office is known within the DOH as the think tank, the seat of sectoral strategy and plans. I started in the research division of the Bureau until I was able to rotate in 3 of its 4 divisions allowing me to hone my skills in policy, planning, and policy research, which are essential in public health policy work. This started off my transition, my thinking process from purely operational to a conceptual thinking process. With every policy that I helped draft, the collective experiences of the people I served in the community guided me to make policies that would indeed touch and improve the lives of our many kababayans. In one of my stints here, I was on the brink of resigning because I found the job too difficult. Fortunately for me, I had a mentor at work, Undersecretary Lilibeth David, who guided me and at the same time continuously challenged me to raise the bar. It was also during my time in the Health Policy Development and Planning Bureau that I became part of the faculty at the Development Academy of the Philippines and the Ateneo School of Government, where I was able to impart knowledge and experiences to our doctors to the barrios and the local government officials. And in turn, I learned from and was inspired by their stories from the battlefield. I took this as an opportunity not just to teach, but also to learn more from the people I encounter every day. I hope you are also able to do the same. Take every day as a learning experience. Eventually, I was transferred to the Food and Drug Administration, where I was tasked to head the field operations throughout the country. It was my first regulatory role, and partly I was excited because it's the closest thing to being the lawyer I thought I could be before. Similar to my mother, but also admittedly scared for many reasons you see and read about. I registered this trepidation with my father, who has been my go-to advisor. So before officially reporting to the Food and Drug Administration, he reminded me of our family values, of my personal reasons for being in government, and told me to know by heart the law and the procedures so I will not be unnecessarily tricked nor pressured. I spent my first 2 months in FDA studying and abided by the procedures that will not compromise my integrity or even perception of integrity. For example, I made it a point to never attend meetings alone. Fast forward today, I am now the OIC Undersecretary of Health of the Public Health Services team of the DOH and the designated spokesperson. Such a role entails a heavy responsibility, more so in the context of the pandemic. Beyond sound bites, I need to give our kababayans the right information so that they can make correct and life-saving decisions. Despite the politically charged atmosphere, I need to uphold transparency and report what is true and evidence-based, even if it will not always make people happy. My job is to call a spade a spade. As the spokesperson of the department, breaking bad news to the public and saying no has been a regular challenge. But in as much as it is difficult, I do it with utmost pride because this is what sticking to science and truth means. For when we want to gain, regain, and grow trust, we need to speak the truth. I've learned a lot in my years in the public sector, and I will always be grateful for the people who I have interacted with because they made me who I am today. Out of the many lessons I have learned, 3 stand out. First, make data and science the bedrock of your decisions. Data. We live in a peculiar time where data is abundant, both correct and false data. However, it is only with the right information framed in the right context can we give an appropriate solution in an ever-changing situation like this pandemic. Correct data, collected in a timely, ethical manner, can allow us to course correct and be flexible, more effective. To this end, whatever role you undertake, make efforts to improve your ability to collect data for decision-making. Support any government effort to digitize systems and facilitate reporting. We need it as much as individual healthcare providers do. Science. During the pandemic, my team would often convene several groups of experts from different fields to systematically appraise different studies, develop algorithms, and the living clinical practice guidelines. It has been such a learning experience for myself, as well as to learn from these experts on how they are able to apply seemingly theoretical principles, from which we would be able to come up with a consensus to be used for protecting the Filipino people and preserving our healthcare system. However, not all of these context-appropriate best evidence are always appreciated by laypersons. Just a few months ago, many demanded to use a specific type of medicine to prevent COVID-19, despite overwhelming evidence that its indication is for parasitic diseases. Still, because it is our job to protect the people, we provide guidelines to minimize, if not eliminate, harm to the population. In the coming years, as healthcare professionals, one's ability to systematically appraise quality evidence for application in public policy and communicate this with integrity will be crucial. And I do hope you continue to build your skills on these two areas and find the courage to uphold context-appropriate science wherever you are. Second, maintain a collaborative and adaptive attitude. Nothing worthy can be done alone. You will never really know what everyone is doing unless you talk to them. Critical ingredients to this include humility, or recognizing that you don't have the monopoly of talent and skills to do it by yourself or your organization, and listening more than making noise or speaking. Collaborations are necessary. You will never really know what everyone is doing unless you communicate with them. We cannot make the whole of government, whole of system, and whole of society approach simply a cliche because it is not. Such a principle needs to exist among public and the private sector, across sectors, between the national and the local government, among academicians and healthcare practitioners, between specialists, from specialists to generalists, and so on and so forth. And along these lines, invest in good relationships and not just shallow networking. All of this will matter as you progress in your careers, especially when you need to undertake bigger tasks for your organization, society, or the sector at large. To cite a concrete example, the statistics of COVID-19 cases you hear about every day is a result of deep collaboration among the Department of Health, our private partners who helped build the electronic system and visualize the numbers in the COVID-19 tracker, the local governments and hospitals, and the disease reporting units who encode and send their data, and within the Department of Health, our epidemiology and communication teams. To overcome all of this, a collaboration between the whole of the Philippines is a must. Handling this pandemic on a day-to-day basis has also taught me the value of adaptation. As Charles Darwin, father of evolution, has said, it is not the strongest of the species that survives, nor the most intelligent that survives. It is the one that is most adaptable to change. Responding to COVID-19 was everything but easy. Slowly, as the data and feedback started to come in, we had to continuously modify our responses that would best suit the situation. And as another variant of concern appeared, we knew that changes had to be made. As you can observe, there were always constraints in our policies, such as maintaining public health standards and advocating on our vaccination program. The rest, we had to act to what the circumstances called for. We could tighten restrictions and be done with it, but we knew an economic balance is as important. To sum it up, because things are always in flux, pandemic or no pandemic, our ability to adapt needs to go hand in hand with our openness to collaborate. Finally, related to my previous point, everyone can have meaningful contribution if given the chance. Ergo, hierarchy is outdated. Hierarchy tends to leave out great ideas of people. This is why I try to practice a flat structure within my teams and also for the past 10 years, actively developed programs that bring in young people to try out government work. Our research fellowship program way back in 2012 has now enabled the absorption of more than 50 energetic and talented young professionals into the bureaucracy who are now making their own waves inside the department and also outside. More recently, during the pandemic, we had to tap everyone we had, and there's no time to draft your ideal team members. Once again, I was reminded, everyone can contribute if you allow them to. I'd like to end my sharing by inviting you to regularly ask yourself, who or what do I want to live for? Why do I want to do what I think I want to do? Your why is as important as your who and what. As the TV commercial mainstreamed the question, para kanino ka ba gumigising? Being in healthcare, most of you have an inclination to be of service to others. There are many ways to do this, and you need not be limited to working in government or in far-flung areas. I invite you to give back and pay forward what you had been afforded by maximizing your God-given talent, allowing more people to benefit from it. It will always be a jungle out there, so find what fuels you when you love your job, kahit pinapaiyak ka na at hindi ka bibigay. And maintain a solid support group of family and friends who will be there to congratulate you or call you out. This is how my daily family dinners have served me well and kept me grounded. Thank you very much for your kind attention. I wish all of you best of health as we hopefully find the end of this tunnel called COVID-19. Mabuhay tayong lahat.
To give the alumni's congratulatory remarks and response to the memorial lecture's theme is Dr. Heidi Sampang-Abiad from Batch 2000 and President of St. Luke's Medical Center, College of Medicine, William H. Quasha Memorial Alumni Association.
As President of the Alumni Association of the St. Luke's Medical Center, College of Medicine, we would like to express our sincerest congratulations to the hard-working organizers of the third RFK Memorial and Honorary Lecture Series. What started as a homage to Dr. Kuan, the RFK Memorial and Honorary Lecture Series has now become an essential part of the fabric of our medical college. The lecture series has featured world-class speakers that advocate the same principles which guided the life of Dr. Kuan. Last year, Mr. Kong told us how to lead a life of significance by placing values on our family and spirituality, just like how Dr. Kuan prioritized God and his family. For this year, Dr. Vergeire emphasized the value of servant leadership, and Dr. Kuan is a servant leader personified. As Lucan doctors are continuously caring for COVID-19 patients with integrity and grace, I hope that the RFK Memorial and Honorary Lecture Series will be a source of inspiration so we can continue to create a life of significance by serving others. Thank you so much, and we are looking forward to the next year's RFK Memorial Lecture Series.
As a token of appreciation for her invaluable contribution as memorial speaker of the third Dr. Robert F. Kuan Memorial Lecture, Dr. Vergeire will be receiving a special artwork created for this occasion by Dr. Christian D. P. Santos, an alumnus of the college from Batch 2011. The wire sculpture entitled The Servant Leader, made of high-grade aluminum on narrow wood base, shows a man holding a face mask. This represents a healthcare worker who will continue to follow his purpose and continue to lead by serving and serve by leading. At this point, we would like to call on Mr. Kelvin Kuan, son of the late Dr. Robert F. Kuan, to give his message on behalf of the Kuan family.
Distinguished Undersecretary Dr. Maria Rosario Vergeire, Chairman Frederick D., President and CEO Dr. Arturo de la Peña, Chief Academic Officer Dr. Susan Nagtalon, members of the Board of Trustees, faculty, administration, alumni, students and staff of St. Luke's Medical Center, College of Medicine, William H. Quasha Memorial, family and friends, thank you for being with us this morning. We are grateful to have as our keynote speaker today, DOH Undersecretary, Dr. Maria Rosario Vergeire. When Mom and I were contemplating and discussing, together with Dr. Susan Nagtalon and Dr. Laya, who can be our next memorial speaker, we want someone who would own the role of being a servant leader, a description that my dad, the late Dr. Robert F. Kuan, really took to heart. And as most of us have seen in the past year, Dr. Vergeire was the voice of the Department of Health, explaining to our nation the latest impact of the virus, what the numbers meant, and what we need to do to protect ourselves and those we love. It is never easy to be the bearer of bad news, especially as we continue to soldier on through this pandemic, suffering in ways that affect our livelihood, our health, our social lives, and even our sanity. We very much appreciate that Dr. Vergeire is able to convey what we need to hear and understand with such authority, clarity, understanding, humility, and most of all, compassion. If you go through her life's work, she has always been in the service of the public for the greater good, in the government and the academe. And it is that commitment to serve that drives her leadership. I personally see a lot of parallels in how she and Dad are able to juggle multiple hats and responsibilities, not just with the organizations they represent, but also in our own families as well. It's not easy being a leader. You've got to have the vision, the drive to really go the extra mile. Most of all, you have got to be willing to let yourself be used by God. Out there in the world, there are many kinds of leaders. Some are motivated by money, others by influence and power. But let me tell you, if that is your primary motivation as a leader, then you may be doomed to fail. Because in order to lead, you have to first learn how to serve. If we go to a restaurant, of course, as a customer, we expect the best food, the best service, the best price. Now, imagine if we own the restaurant. How do we put ourselves in the shoes of the customer so that they will enjoy the food so much that they keep on coming back? We need to understand how they think. We need to identify what do they want. How can we best serve them? How can we anticipate and prepare and delight the customer? And how can we teach our employees and inspire them to think with a customer mindset? How do we expand that mindset so that the rest of the organization, that we grow and create a positive impact? Here at St. Luke's, how do we serve the needs of our patients so that we continue to deliver world-class care? How do we serve the needs of our students so that we nurture the correct values in them, provide the right environment, guidance, and framework so that they can someday carry on the torch of serving and caring for our fellow Filipinos? Lead meaningfully by serving meaningfully. Allow me to share with you a story. You see, I almost couldn't make it to deliver this message to you today. Like most Filipinos, the pandemic caught me by surprise. At first in the news, it felt like a TV series. It was in China, then it got detected in other countries, until suddenly it was here, supposedly. We would hear about it in the news. on our social media. But our daily life basically stayed the same. We lived, we worked, we played, life goes on. But then the news started to change. Cases went up, the government announced the quarantine. Then a friend of a friend caught it. Someone's cousin is in the hospital. An old classmate is in critical condition. Soon, the numbers on TV weren't just numbers anymore. They were names. These were people who were suddenly becoming closer and closer. I was one of those fortunate enough to be working through the pandemic last year. My team and I did our best to ensure that essential everyday groceries were available to the communities we served. Then, one day, November 24, started out as an ordinary day, but I sensed that my body was not totally fine. True enough, later I went home and had a fever. It persisted for a couple of days, so I went to a nearby hospital in Laguna. Initial swab test, negative. Initial diagnosis, dengue. I continued to be weak and feverish until a second swab test yielded the dreaded news, positive. I was then transferred to St. Luke's on December 1. By the time I arrived there, I was in serious condition. It was a severe case of COVID-19. I could vaguely remember Dr. Ruth Divina Gracia informing me that I needed to be intubated, and I can't remember much after that. I was sedated and intubated, and there were moments in the next days when I was told I could hardly breathe, my oxygen levels really crashed. They gave me some medicines, but some of my organs would react, so they had to stop the medication from time to time. Whatever they did, the doctors, nurses, and the rest of the medical team, it worked. I woke up December 12 in the MICU, and at first, I didn't know where I was. I opened my eyes and I couldn't move. I had tubes and bandages connected to both of my arms, to my neck, my nostrils, and my mouth. I could only make the smallest of movements, slowly nod or shake my head. I couldn't recognize any of the people going in and out either. Everybody looked like astronauts and ninjas in their PPE. I could only see their eyes. When the medical team learned that I was awake, they called Mom, and seeing my mom, my sister Natalie, my brother-in-law Randy on the video call, reassuring me that I will be okay, to be strong, the tears started running down my cheeks. There I was, my mind conscious, but I was trapped inside my body on the ICU bed. Lying there, I was helpless. Apart from the tubes and the wires, my body was still weak. I had lost a lot of weight, around 28 pounds. I thought about my two sons, Carl and Inigo, and I couldn't stop crying. They say that when you die, your life flashes before your eyes. But for me, I woke up and I live, and that is just what happened. Wonderful celebrations, happy victories, moments of sadness and anger, missed opportunities, what we were able to do and what we were not. A few minor regrets, but mostly pride and joy. My heart is full. I was alive, and for the moment, that was enough. I said the prayer of thanks and asked God to give me strength so that I could see my boys and be with them again. Slowly, I got stronger. After 2 days, they removed all the intubation, and I got to video call with my brother Jeremy and my 2 boys finally. It was heartwarming. It was a short call, but filled with so much love, gratitude, and emotion. They also told me that while I was sedated, there would be a lot of new Marvel TV shows and movies that were just announced. So I better recover faster so that we can watch all of it together. So that gave me a lot of incentive. Kidding aside, I realized that this is my second life. I am blessed. I continue to gain back my strength, and under the care of the St. Luke's team, I was finally discharged on December 24, 2020. That was my Christmas miracle. To this day, I am still recovering. More than 9 months after leaving the hospital, I still have to catch my breath in between talking. My energy has more or less settled at around 85% of my pre-COVID stamina, and I'm doing exercises to build back my muscle. My left pinky finger is still numb. Oh, and for 2 months after the discharge, I also experienced significant hair loss, but it has since normalized, I think. So yes, COVID-19 is real. It is very real. I apologize. I realize you must all be wondering why I'm sharing my personal experience when this should be a response from the family. Well, I wanted to take the opportunity to share just a fraction of what I went through, if somehow, through this testimony, it will encourage you to do more to protect yourselves and your own family, more than my own experience. These are the very reasons why Undersecretary Vergeire, the DOH, and all the medical frontliners are working hard so that people like me may live, and even better, so that we don't have to get sick at all. I also want to highlight and really commend the medical team who took care of me. A lot of nurses, doctors, medical frontliners who did their best to save my life. And those of countless others in hospitals all over the country and around the world. I am very, very lucky. My struggle lasted only for a while, but unfortunately, for our frontliners, they do not have that luxury. They are quite literally risking their own lives to save ours, nonstop. I hope that someday soon, this pandemic will be over, so that I can come to St. Luke's without a mask or a face shield to meet the team who saved my life and brought me back, and give them a big hug of thanks. But before that happens, we, all of us as one world, have to come together and work together to do our part. Keep our distance, wear a mask, disinfect, get vaccinated, be on guard all the time. We have to do these things consistently if we want to get our lives back, so that when we can freely go out with our loved ones and live life to the fullest once again. In the quiet moments during my recuperation, I truly believe that my dad has a hand in interceding for me to continue on this life. It feels very providential that the hospital he helped to plan and build would one day save my life. Even in his death, his legacy still continues. Thanks, Dad. To our students, we see the value of what you learned today. Create, research, adapt, make mistakes, fail. Learn from those mistakes and failures and try again. It is in that spirit of serving the community, that drive, passion, and vision, that we foster collaboration and innovation and bring about meaningful change. Let our mission be your guide. Be clinically competent and ethical, academic and research-oriented, collaborative and patient-centered, socially engaged, and compassionate. May our memorial lecture today be an inspiration and a beacon of hope for our One Lucan community to take up the challenge of servant leadership for the future of our community and our nation. Live a life of learning, live a life of service, live a life of humility. Again, on behalf of our Kuan family, our sincerest and heartfelt thanks.
Closing.
The entire community of St. Luke's Medical Center, College of Medicine, William H. Quasha Memorial, would like to express our heartfelt gratitude to the Kuan family, Dr. Maria Rosario Vergeire, and all the participants of the third Dr. Robert F. Kuan Memorial Lecture. Servant leader, two words that most would likely deem as opposites, but when put together means plenty of conscious thought, a selfless mindset, and a commitment to service. Servant leadership is more than leading by example. A servant leader is always a servant at heart, before, during, and after holding a leadership position, because that is who he is or she is deep down inside. The leadership position can be taken away, but the servant nature remains. Sometimes it is a thankless job, but it is the one that can reap great rewards.
We heed our chosen call as healers with God's graceful touch. Take the oath of destiny for our Father's glory. We in the Academe unite our strength together, working with a vision as servants of our people. St. Luke's our alma mater, the light to guide our way. With courage, pride we fly, bearing your colors to greater heights. When we live, we won't forget to serve, to live, to love. We will always remember St. Luke's our home forever. St. Luke's our alma mater, the light to guide our way. With courage, pride we fly, bearing your colors to greater heights. When we live,